have to make sure that you're.
Hi guys.
Oh hey.
Hillary, Josh.
Josh
and Hillary.
Batman.
And you are not Batman. Just because you talk like Batman does not make you Batman.
I am Batman.
You can't do it now.
I can't do it. No.
He went on like a 20-minute Batman spiel last night.
Watch Batman Begins.
We watched an old episode.
Yeah.
Did you know that if you rewatch old movies that you've watched before, or you reread a book that you've watched before,
you liked,
don't watch one you didn't like, it creates endorphins in your body and it makes you feel good. So if you have a book that you like or a movie you like and you need some endorphins, go watch and go read.
Yep. Because your body anticipates the enjoyment of it and starts releasing endorphins even before you're actually enjoying it.
Yeah. Huh. That's kind of cool.
I wonder if that would work with like raising children. Just tell yourself that you're going to enjoy this tantrum that's coming in. No.
We were just discussing how feeding small babies is a very joyless process sometimes. You go through all this process of cooking for them, these healthy foods, and then you put it on their plate and you're like, look what I made for you. And then they take it and dump it on the ground. And I love when they do the slow, like they hold it and they hold it over the high chair and then they...
It's like the FU, like of they picking up the bowl, slowly moving it over, and then dump. Microphone drop.
Yeah. So, we didn't plan this at all. We don't have a script. We don't have any notes. No. We just had a lot of people asking us about Isaiah and what we've been doing with him. Hi.
Hey.
And so, we are just...
We were going to share a little bit of our story, right?
That we'll just...
with Isaiah and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like we need like a little bit of a backstory, though. Like with us and kids in general. So you've actually raised 3 to
so we have
adulthood.
5 kids altogether. We're a blended family.
We are.
We have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old girl who's sandwiched between 4 brothers. So then we have the 2 youngest two, Isaiah and Sawyer. So Isaiah is almost 3 and Sawyer is 1, a little over 1.
And even then, so I came in, we just had the 3, and then we started to do foster care because we're awesome like that, or touched in the head, whichever you prefer. And how many foster kids have we been through?
We've had 10 placements now.
10
altogether.
Placements, yep. So
well, we've had 10 kids.
10 kids,
maybe
like 5 placements, because some of them were sibling sets. And so in that, and again, those aren't like a good normal basis, but that was sort of the parenting that I stepped into.
Yeah, Josh started out.
I started out with
no kids. We got married. Mm-hmm. Then we had 3 that I brought into the marriage.
3 step kids.
And then we had foster kids, and then we found out we were pregnant, and we went from like 0 to 1 million children like overnight.
Yeah.
Or you went from 0 to 1 million.
I went from 0 to like 6 in like the period of like a year, which let me tell you, as a non-parent, is a steep learning curve. So, and I was an awesome parent until I started doing it.
And you thought I knew everything, and you were like, "Wait a minute, you're supposed to be the veterinarian."
Yeah, I was like, oh, "What do you do in this situation?" And she just looks at me and she's like,
"Just because you've been a
there's
parent,
some laundry I need to do."
Just because you've been a parent does not mean you know how to parent that child. Every child is so different.
Yes.
Their personalities, the way that they respond to rules and boundaries and discipline, their appetites, how picky they are so night and day. Like between all 5 of our kids, we have completely different human beings.
And being
which is fun.
Step parent, a foster parent, and a bio parent, all very different animals in how you approach them and everything, how you approach parenting. Sort of the rules of engagement. One of the things I didn't like, and this is just sort of leading into what we're talking about, is this idea, and I don't want to offend anyone, but the whole like guard your heart thing that people often give that piece of advice to foster parents, especially if you're in the community of believers. They're like, oh, guard your heart. We joke about it all the time. But like the reality is that if you are actually like investing in those kids and you actually care about that, like there's no doing it. You just gotta go in and realize that it's gonna hurt. Like, but it's good. It is. Probably the.
I'm a little less squishy, but yeah.
Yeah.
After our first placement, I was a little less squishy. My first placement
Tristan
was really
broke her
hard.
heart. That guy, oh my goodness, it was the hardest thing. But he's
We're getting
leaving.
way off track.
Can we just talk about that though? So
You're gonna make me cry right in the first 5
I'm
minutes.
sorry.
Seriously.
It's leaving day, and it's our first placement, and he's getting ready to go, and we get him buckled in his seatbelt, and he does like he had this thing that he would do, but he's pretty much just like reaching for my wife, and just that little happy Tristan smile on his face. It was heartbreaking, and then the car's gone, and we just had to cope.
I think the cutest thing though was that we had these 2 little boys still placed with us, and then we found out we were pregnant with Isaiah. So we were pregnant, we had 2 foster kiddos, we were newly married, and then we had our 3 older kids, and we were like juggling all these crazy like seasons of life. And then when Isaiah was born, we got to kind of see how our little guys like interacted with or our little guy, because we didn't have Sawyer yet, but just Isaiah, just how they interacted. It was just really cute.
It was, yeah.
So it just made it was a really hard season. And this is something
it was still in the midst of the divorce too, which will be a topic for another time. We're not going to go there. But like, you want to talk about just crazy seasons, that was a very...
Yeah, and something I don't always like talk about a whole lot is that after Isaiah, I don't know if it was just being older and being pregnant again and my hormones were just all out of whack, but I really struggled. I never like went and got an official title or diagnosis or anything like that, but I just read a bunch, and what I was experiencing was definitely postpartum depression. Like, I would go and grab Isaiah when I felt it coming on, and I would go hide in our bedroom, and I would say, oh, I gotta go feed the baby. And I would just start crying for no reason, like just tears. I remember sitting there watching like Josh sleeping at night, and I was just crying all the time. It was ridiculous because it was the most happiest season of my life, and yet I had this like sorrow and sadness and like mourning. It was so weird. Like, I think we just went through a lot before we got married, before we got pregnant, and I think I was just really, my body was drained physically, like nutritionally, all sorts of things. So I didn't handle that postpartum craziness that happens after baby. So then when I had Sawyer, I was a little more prepared, but it still kind of happened a little bit. But anyways, totally off track.
Yeah.
But
definitely
it's hard.
Our story, and it gives a background for where we are. Like, we are definitely not by any means good at this. We're
totally winging this. But
we are so half-assing it some days and
you just
totally
said
getting it.
Bad word.
Sorry.
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
You know, if you say peanut butter after you say a naughty word in front of small children, all they hear is peanut butter. Maybe you might want to come up with something better like Oreos if it's a really bad word, but something to distract them from what you just said. Anyways.
Hi, Cassie.
Yeah, it was literally like any little thing could go wrong, D, and I was just like this puddle of emotions. It was crazy. Like,
even right after the birth, like, the nurse came in. I just remember this.
Oh, I yelled at our nurse.
Yeah.
At the hospital.
Just don't touch it. It was there was so many hard things
I felt
about
like
that.
I was having an out-of-body experience.
It really didn't get, like, it was hard, and it's hard being, like, a husband, because all you can really do is, like, encourage, but, you know, it's just something that you really just had to process through.
I don't even think I fully realized all of it until way, 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 way afterwards, and I didn't even really share a whole lot, because I'm the type of person that I'm like, I don't have weakness.
Yeah.
I don't show weakness. Like, I don't like to, I'm like, this will be fine. I'll just keep going. Everything will be okay.
I don't know everything, but I do know this, guys. Don't point it out and don't try to fix it. I know that one. I got that. That one I know. I learned that one.
Hey, from Florida. Hi, Cheryl.
Hey.
So Isaiah, we had together when we got married, and I was older. I remember Josh being so worried. He like Googled way too much. He was like so worried that I was gonna like keel over and die on him or something. And so he didn't even want us to like try. We weren't really trying, but we weren't preventing. So I'm sorry for that too much information. But so Isaiah was kind of a surprise, but kind of not. When we found out we were pregnant, I remember putting the little pregnancy test, like I just kind of dropped it on the floor and I ran out just laughing hysterically. Like, I could not stop laughing. I was just hysterical. I'm like, Josh, you gotta come see this. And I just stood there laughing. And he's like, what? He thought I was losing my mind.
I did. I was like, what is going on?
He thought I was having an hysterical fit. And then the kids were like, what's going on? What's going on? And I'm like, it's a spider in the bathroom. And then when we finally told them we were going to do like this whole 20 questions thing, let them guess.
They got it on the first one.
They're like, you guys are
they
pregnant,
knew what was
aren't
going
you?
on. Yep. They're like, oh, yep.
Anyways, our little Isaiah, I had an awesome pregnancy. Like, I worked out the whole time. I was super like active, and we were doing foster care and doing all this stuff. Yeah, and we didn't really start to notice anything maybe being odd. And Josh is like, I have no idea. I've never had kids before. Like, and we'd only done foster care before that. And if anyone who's done foster care knows, like,
that is not the normal. Yeah,
it's
do
not
not use that as your baseline.
Foster kiddos, like, for the majority of the time, it's not a normal. Like, they just have different issues sometimes, like different developmental issues. Not all, but for us, that's what we had experienced so far. So when Isaiah started having just little quirks and little things that I was like, babe, I don't think this is right. And he's like, oh, it's fine. And then we kind of wrote it off like, oh, we have 3 older kids. Yep. They're picking him up too much. They're handing him everything. They're not making him communicate enough.
And it was super cute. Like, he just had to like reach, and he had like these big older siblings that came and brought him magically to whatever he wanted. And so, we just sort of assumed, like, well, going into that some of the delays, some of the milestones he was missing was just that, just
he didn't walk as early. I think he didn't crawl. Like, I think he started crawling like at a year, something crazy like that. And I'm terrible now. Looking back, I wish I had tracked all these things better, because now we're kind of trying to fill it in and fill the gaps and trying to figure out where he was at. But and then he didn't walk, and just communication. And then I remember when we started noticing like the tantrums and like the having a difficult time with certain situations, I think was when he was around like 18 months. I think I was gone that summer. Yeah. And he had this like one toy that we had to take away because it was like just frustrating him beyond belief. And it wasn't the normal, like, that was the hard part. Is this just an 18-month-old? Is this just a 2-year-old? Is this just a 2.5-year-old? Like, what is normal and what is something that's not, it's like off? I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. But so then fast forward, we just kind of kept saying, oh, it's fine. It's just who he is.
I think as a parent, you always just want to be like, oh, it's like, you don't want to like label in your head, and you don't like, I mean, there are children who are, seriously and obviously from a very young age, not hitting the milestones. And he was close. He just wasn't quite where everyone else was.
It wasn't obvious. It was just one of those things in the back of your mind. And then I remember when we sat down and we decided to write everything down.
Yes.
And I think I did this by myself, and then I showed Josh and I read it to him. Like, it was overwhelming. All the things that were issues, or things that we saw that were struggles, or things that we saw that were things he was regressing in and going backwards.
And that was the biggest red flag, was milestones he had hit and then lost. And
like potty training. We had started potty training, and then I was like, babe, the kid he is today, right now, there's no way. Like, he's not ready. He's totally gone backwards. And then I think when we got the most concerned is when we tried to communicate with him. He would just be not there. Like, he was totally dazed or just confused. He seemed like he was almost drugged. It was really bizarre. Like, we both were acting.
It was
like,
weird.
I was like, Josh, am I just imagining this? Because I feel like I get kind of emotional sometimes. Like, tell me, you're more logical. Like, am I just making this stuff up? Am I crazy? Like,
and it's so good too, like, to be able to like communicate, because like I've been seeing these things and we had talked about it, but then like to hear them like mirrored in me, like I was like, and then as you start looking for those things, it's easier to build a bigger picture. So it came to a head really when we had these tantrums where there was like not only was it just a tantrum, but there was like no communication, and then just other times where he was just like drugged, and it's like, didn't even respond to his own name. Like, you would be like,
and you'd ask him questions and he'd just be like, yeah. And then the screaming was like someone was burning him.
Yeah.
Like, it was so intense. It wasn't like...
And we've had screamers in our house. We know screamers. And this was
not a normal tantrum. Like,
was...
that's what I kept telling Josh. I'm like, babe, these are not normal tantrums. I think the hardest part was when I tried to explain it to other people. And, you know, it was like, oh, he's just a kid. He's just 2. He'll grow out of it. It's not a big deal. And honestly, if you were to like come over to our house and hang out with him for a little bit, you may not see a lot of these things right away. It's kind of one of those things where you live with your child day in and day out, and your parent intuition is what kicks in, and you're like, something's not right. This is not...
And that's why regression's such a bad thing too, because like other people won't see it. Like if your kid's been hitting milestones and then they stop, unless they're spending the same amount of time with your kids that you are, they won't see it. And so you might be like, hey man, I'm seeing this, and they might, you know, you have to be your kid's biggest advocate. Like, and I think the worst thing, and people that we've been talking to, you know, if we're gonna talk about it, some of the people that have, you know, gone this path before us and they have been really great resources for us, the ones that, you know, I really appreciate are the ones that are like, don't wait, you know, just, you know, even if you're wrong, it's better to be proactive now and to be wrong and to be doing like helpful things than to just hope that it'll go away or get better.
And that's the hard part about like this age group, especially because we started noticing things at like 18 months, but we didn't do anything until what, like
nearly
2.5?
2.5, yeah.
2.5 years old.
So a year.
I remember like we started talking about it like when he was 2, like, gosh, should we do something? Like maybe it's his diet. We noticed his stomach would get super bloated, like someone had blown it up like a balloon.
Yep.
After he would eat. And so then we started drawing connections between, well, maybe it's his diet. Maybe what we're feeding him is poison to his body. It's causing these symptoms for him. So it was hard though,
yeah.
because
but then we finally decided, like, we're like, okay, let's, you know, and it was really my wife led, like, you know, she did a lot of the research and was like, I think we should try this, and this, and also like get our pediatrician on board, you know, start making these things. And so we came up with a plan and put it into action pretty quick.
Which this is one thing that was actually kind of crazy that I actually wish we hadn't have started anything.
Yes.
If I were to go backwards, and if this is you and you have kiddos that are maybe have some similar things going on, and we can talk more specifically about some of the things that we saw, but I wish that we would have not started anything, because by the time, like 2 weeks later, literally 2 or 3 weeks later, from the time we contacted our pediatrician, got started with this whole process, and then started having him evaluated, he was a different kid.
Yep.
Just
because we had made changes. We had made changes instantly as soon as we decided, before we got him into our pediatrician, and less than 2 weeks. Like, we saw like instant turnarounds.
It was
like,
crazy.
It was a different kid. It was.
I honestly wasn't expecting it to be that drastic that quick. So
Yeah.
what we did, and we didn't even do this like super strict.
No.
We just tried to eliminate gluten from his diet as much as we could.
Yep.
We didn't go micro read labels. There's gluten hidden everywhere. Like, if you are someone who is seriously allergic, you know what I'm talking about. There's gluten in everything. And I can get into the whole thing about it may not be necessarily just the gluten. It could be the whole process of how we grow things and what we spray things, all that stuff. But we eliminated gluten, and then we introduced digestive enzymes, and we introduced more probiotics, and we also did like multivitamins and some supplements. And of course, you know, we use oils and all that stuff, but
we also started being very proactive too in the ways that we interacted with him. Not just like specific strategies, but we just got really on the same page, and we started to really, you know, be systematized, I guess. I don't know how you would explain that.
I think it was just being more aware that we needed to deal with him differently, that the discipline tactics that we were using would have been fine with a normal, and I hate that word normal, but with another 2-year-old. But for Isaiah, all it did was just frustrate him and turn him go into this huge like meltdown.
And instead of trying, you know, thing after thing after thing, you know, picking a you know, we're gonna attempt this, and then following through with it, you know, to really create a routine rather than, just changing up the game on him, since it was really a cognitive struggles that he was having with understanding, anything. And that was the biggest thing, was the cognitive understanding. When he started slipping from those milestones, those were like our indicators, like,
yeah. Anyways, some of the things that we started to see was when we would give him a bath at night, water became like an issue on his head.
Yep.
He did not like it at all, and it wasn't like, oh, I don't like that. It was like screaming,
like you were
like
murdering
something
him.
was burning him.
And again, everything has to be in perspective, because before, fish, loved it, splashed, wants to, loves water, thinks water is the greatest thing ever, to you think you were murdering the child.
And that's the thing. I don't want to. I have some ideas about things. If we just look back at our timeline and what we were doing, and I'm gonna say this, but I don't want like other people to. I don't know. We decided we weren't really going to like vaccinate a whole lot. And so we were doing this really reduced schedule of just one at a time. I was trying to meet the middle road with Josh, and I was totally like, I didn't care. I wasn't going to do any of it. But I was trying to respect that he thought they were valuable. And so we tried to find the middle road, and we were doing like a reduced schedule. But then he kept having like stronger and stronger reactions to the vaccinations. And now when I look back, the ones that we chose to do are actually some of the biggest offenders for things. So anyways, we don't know specifically because we're kind of trying to work backwards, but the timeline of when we took him into his last appointment and they accidentally gave him 2 at the same time, and 2 of the biggest offenders at the same time. And if anyone wants to message me, I'm happy to share like what we did, but we don't know specifically. It's just that we've done a ton of research. We strongly believe that we are our own best health advocates. Yes. And so we did a ton of research, and we just wrote out what we thought our timeline was, and then we just start writing down things that we saw as triggers. And so we just went at it from all angles. So I also looked up a ton of things on like heavy metals and what they can do to our kiddos and just to our bodies as adults. And so we started doing some detox things with him as well. Yep. So I that's another thing. I wish in hindsight we had done one thing at a time, but we just like were desperate and attacked it from like all angles.
Different angles. Yeah. I also want to share, like, people who know me, like, if you knew before, if we had this conversation, it's actually one of the first conversations we had was about vaccinations. I was definitely very pro-vaccination. I felt that, that there was, studies and science and support. And I felt like I had the whole medical community on my side. And then to go through this, and then, and again, you got to make up your own mind. But doing the research that she brought me, and when you start to look at these things, I remember saying, they don't put mercury in vaccinating. Like, that's crazy. They would never do that. It's neurotoxic. That's some sort of fear tactic that they use. And then going and having to actually read and realizing that I was wrong, that I was recycling information that I believed without having a foundational research behind it. And so after seeing this, and then on the other side, and I wish, you always wonder, like, what could I have done differently? Like, what might be different? And it's not profitable. It's not worthwhile at all. But I will say, if you do have young children, whatever your thoughts or beliefs or convictions, do your research. Like, at least be in the know.
I'll just say one thing that I found that I thought was really upsetting. They have never once tested all of these vaccinations together at the same time.
Yeah. At the schedule rate that they recommend. You want to talk about drug interactions? How can you talk about there being no drug interactions if you've never run the study?
We don't want to offend anyone or anything
we
like
really
that.
Don't.
We totally are believers.
And again, this is just our journey.
We are totally believers that you are your own best health advocate, and we do not judge other people's decisions whatsoever. But we think that everyone should have the right to choose what is best based on the information that they have found. And that doctors should take a lot more time discussing the information with you and the potential hazards. Because I can tell you, if if a doctor had sat down with us and really told us a lot of the information that we have found and really gone over a lot of the risks, it wouldn't have been worth it to me, for me personally. And I would have opted out. But again, like, I just knew what I knew. I didn't know enough yet. And so we just made the best decision at that time for us. But we totally are not like haters on either side whatsoever. Sometimes we think there's way too much hate going on.
Yes.
And everyone
to have
just needs
like
to understand
a reasonable conversation.
everyone's best decision, because it's your family really and your kids, and you have to make the best decision. But there's so much information out there, and that's what we love. And so we're just here to bring our information to you, because we realize if there's another family out there with a little 2-year-old or a little 18-month-old or a little 3-year-old, you know, we've seen some of these things in our own house with some of our foster kiddos. Like, if you have that kid in your family, and it could be a simple thing as just eliminating something from their diet or giving them some supplements or changing what you're doing or whatever, like, and that your kid could go from what Isaiah went from to what he is today.
And so that's the really positive. I guess that's why we want to share this story. And I know not everyone, you know, we are incredibly blessed. Like, I never want to belittle a struggle that I have not been through myself. I never want to, you know, everyone's experience is different. We are just, as at the end of the day, dependent on Christ for all mercies and grace.
We don't judge a sin we haven't struggled with.
We don't.
Sin is sin, and like all things are
anything,
equal.
anything. I have never been an ER doctor. I would not ever speak to what that situation is like. And so, for those who have gone through different experiences, you know, we just thought it would be kind of fun to share our story and where we're at. And there is good for us. I know not everyone's story is the same, but we have seen huge improvements in Isaiah. He's not the same kid, you know, and we aren't totally sure what it is. We're still sort of eliminating and adding things and trying to really isolate what it is. But the good news is he is not the same kid. We have made huge strides since changing his diet, and it's complete turnaround. It's been awesome.
I just want to like confess something. Like, I was one of those people that totally judged like people who had kids with maybe some, you know, behavioral issues or whatever, and like just thought, oh, they just need more discipline. They just need more structure. They just need whatever. And now I'm like sometimes I feel like God has this incredible sense of humor. Like, be careful what you say and what you speak, because he will take you down a path you may not want to go. But I have learned so much from Isaiah, and now when I see other people like struggling with a kid in the grocery store or having like a rough day, like, I just want to go over and give them a hug, because I know how hard it can be on the other side. Like, there are days where we are just going from one tantrum to the next, and I'm so fried and just done. And so you just never know what someone else is going through and what their struggle actually is and what is actually causing it. And so anyways, that's totally off topic, but I just felt like outing myself.
Yeah. And on a side note, like, we've been really blessed with some awesome community, awesome people who are gone through similar struggles or different struggles or been there and been able to be just super supportive and encouraging. And I think more than anything else, like, having those people, having those friends that you know, that share, that encourage, walking through and seeing other people's stories, just hearing other people's story. Like, community is amazing and is so necessary. And I wish I could almost duplicate the good community that we have and like give that to everyone. But it's so important. So if you are going through this and you need community, you know, find it.
And we're just making this up as we go. We're just learning as we go.
We are not experts.
We are not experts whatsoever. And like, it's totally what works for our family. And we are still in this whole process, which has been awesome and crazy and exhausting and hard and good all at once. So, we don't have any official things with Isaiah. We're just still kind of like figuring it out and making it up as we go, and just really tailoring it to what he needs. And yeah.
Very true, Dee. God never does give you more than you can handle, but he will give you enough to push you and grow you and put you through the fire sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah. We hope, if you have questions about our journey, we hope you enjoyed. We're sharing our thing.
And hey, if you are another parent who is going through some of these similar things and some of these things sound familiar to you and you want to reach out and share with us what you found was helpful, or you have questions for us, maybe something we can share that's helpful to you. Yep. I know Josh is the same way. I truly believe that all of our stories are not necessarily our own. I think that God gives us our story so then we can share it with others and they can be like, oh, me too. Me too. I'm not alone in that. Or, oh, that worked for you. Maybe that'll work for me too. And the biggest thing is just not feeling alone in your own big, crazy mess, and just knowing that other people are kind of in it with you. Even if they're not right next beside you, they're in it with you, kind of going through the same things. Yeah. So, anyways.
So, yeah, thanks for hanging out. Hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah, happy Friday night.
We did get a giant box, so we will be doing an unboxing soon, which will be super awesome. Yeah. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see if I got more beard oil.
Because I like to order things on accident that we don't really
What are
need.
random things we'll get? So
it's okay. I'll find someone to gift it to.
Yep.
Anyways, thanks so much for joining us, you guys, and have
a
great rest of your Friday evening.
All right.
Talk to you soon. Bye.